research topic in the last 20 years. Now this work was done with So-Young Yim. She is in KMA, and Wenxing is a PhD student from the Ocean University of China, visiting IPRC for 2 years. I will mainly talk about the three parts. One is May-June South China rainfall prediction. Second part is May-June East Asian monsoon rainfall anomaly prediction, anomaly pattern prediction, and then July-August rainfall anomaly predictions. This actually is three different work, but they are all related to each other. The dynamic models, multi-model ensemble prediction by 4 models from NCEP, Australia, GFDL, and Frontier Global Change, Syntax, has good skills for rainfall prediction in the tropics, but over the Asian monsoon regions, especially in the East Asian monsoon regions, the summer rainfall prediction skill is still very low, except some spots. Large areas are not skillful. Therefore, the question is, how come this dynamic model's forecast scale of rainfall over East Asian regions is so poor? Is this due to the intrinsic limited predictability? In that case, we have to estimate what is the predictability of the rainfall over East Asia summer monsoon region, or it is because of the deficiencies in the numerical models. Those are questions we have to face and to discuss. Precipitation, of course, is the most important hydrometeorological variables, which is relevant to food productions, water resources management, and disasters mitigation. However, so far, this seasonal prediction of the rainfall remains the foremost long-standing challenge. Now, the way forward, of course, is improve our dynamic model ultimately. Dynamic model is a tool for the seasonal forecast and improve their MME predictions. On the other hand, given such a poor skills, there is a need to looking for other ways or other tools to get better predictions. And those models hopefully can also help to understand or identify these deficiencies in these dynamic models. A brief review of the physical process governing the East Asia summer monsoon rainfall variability. In the literature, you have hundreds of papers. I didn't cite particular name, but I summarize their 9 probably different aspects. One is, of course, is ENSO. ENSO affect East Asia summer monsoon is different from their impact on the Indian summer monsoon. It's mainly in the decaying phase of the El Nino or La Nina, and through this surface air-sea interaction and teleconnections. Atmosphere-ocean interaction, especially monsoon and underlying ocean interaction, is very important. In the monsoon regions, those SST anomalies are normally a result of monsoon forcing, rather than the monsoon is forced by SST anomaly. So in the monsoon regions, the atmosphere-ocean interaction can provide variability source or predictability, but not treat SST as a forcing. Snow cover over Tibetan Plateau and Eurasia, and the Tibetan Plateau surface warming or temperature anomaly, rainfall anomaly, can impact the downstream system. This is a North Atlantic oscillation. We know in the springtime, NAO anomaly corresponding to North Atlantic tropical, extratropical SST anomalies. And those SST anomalies is able to affect the Central Pacific SST anomaly, and then through Central Pacific SST anomaly affect the East Asia monsoon during the next summer season. Land surface moisture anomalies and spring Arctic sea ice variability. Now those are just, many of them are not really very robust signal, but there is a possibilities. And also the teleconnection from Southern Hemisphere annual mode called SAM. Now there may be some others. For example, you can hear SSC anomalies over Indian Ocean, SSC anomalies over East Asia seaboard, so on and so forth. But I think we should consider ocean-atmosphere interaction rather than treat them as SSC forcing. Okay. Now, the rainy season in the East Asia is as early as in May. As a matter of fact, the rainy season starts in southern China probably sometime in April. They call the pre-summer rainy season, but it's heavy. Its daily rainfall is more than 6 millimeters per day. It is the earliest rainy season onset on the entire northern hemisphere. So May has already started. The South China Sea monsoon onset in May, and the rain band established along the southern China through Taiwan, Okinawa to southern of Japan. This subtropical front rain belt is established in the middle of May, sometimes in early May. Therefore, we have to think May, June, July, August as the rainy season. It's not just June, July, August. Now, the East Asia monsoon also has a feature that they advance northward. And if you compare the May-June average, the climatology, this is the subtropical high. The ridge is tilted toward north of Philippines. And this is the southerly monsoon flow. And the major rain band is over these regions. And in July, August, the subtropical high reach around 28 degrees. And the major rainfall probably in the Korea Peninsula is called Changma season. And those are tropical monsoon trough, West Pacific rainfall. So if you look at this circulation system, just from the low level, you see there is a huge difference. So there is a large seasonal climatological difference between MJ and JA. Okay. Now, in 2009, we have a paper to look at the major mode of variability during May, June, and July, August for the same regions. And the major mode of variability also different. In other words, their interannual variations are not the same. Therefore, we propose that for summer monsoon rainfall prediction over East Asia, we should consider bi-monthly rather than June, July, August. Why we consider bi-monthly? Because it can eliminate those intra-seasonal impact. And interannual variability and the intra-seasonal variability has a different source of variability. And intra-seasonal variability sometimes involve atmospheric internal dynamics is more difficult to predict. So if you want to make a monthly mean forecast, you better to consider the intra-seasonal variability. But for seasonal variability, I think the minimum time scale should be bi-monthly. Now, this is the argument I made. And if you look at the difference between May, June, and July, August, you see the rain band are very different. Okay. So, therefore, I will focus on May, June prediction and the July, August predictions. The prediction early summer, so-called May, June rainfall over South China by physical-empirical model. This figure shows May, June, again, their climatology. And as I said, the West Pacific subtropical ridge go through somewhere 15 degrees north. And to the north, you have this rain band. And the South China is a variability center. Another variability center is over south of Japan. Very large variability. Now, if you look at the entire northern hemisphere, rainfall distributions, you see this East Asian subtropical front is outstanding features. Indian monsoon has not really started. It's only partially started. But this rain belt is the major rain belt over the entire northern hemisphere. And for the southern China, this is the first UF mode in May-June precipitation in this domain. And you can see how they are located. So the South China regions, if you make a 72 station, make an average rainfall index, the maximum is in May. June start to decrease. And then July, August is less than May, June. And then they decrease. So you see the May, June actually is a major peak rainy season in the southern China and the south of Japan. Therefore, we try to use the 72 station rainfall, construct a South China rainfall index. And this black curve is year-to-year variability in the last 34 years. Okay. Now there's also, we select these 4 dynamic models to make a multi-model ensemble prediction of this index. That is the blue curve, I believe. So the correlation between observation and the model is rather limited, is 0.15. Now, the UF1 PC is highly correlated with the South China rainfall index. So, in other words, this index represents May, June. The first UF is not just localized in the South China, but also the entire East Asian monsoon region. So it is important to understand what controls this year-to-year variability over these regions. And over these regions, there are there's maybe some weak trends and or multi-decadal variation. We are not very sure about that because after 93, 94, we know there is a decadal variability. I think Dr. Wang and his collaborators has described this. So you can see this signal over this region. But anyway, in early summer, the strongest rain belt of the northern hemisphere occurs over the East Asian subtropical front. And during this period, the South China rainfall reaches its annual peak. And it represents the maximum rainfall variability over East Asia. Therefore, we established a South China Rainfall Index, which is 72 stations average rainfall. And it represents the leading UF mode of May-June precipitation over East Asia. Now the question is how to predict South China Rainfall Index. This is similar to the Indian Monsoon Rainfall Index called All-Indian Rainfall Index over India. So we often have such questions. You can ask if you make all South Korea average rainfall during May, June, or July, August. You can ask similar questions, how to predict such a time series. Now, the methodology is to use so-called physical-based empirical model. Now, to establish such kind of so-called PE model is you first have to understand the physical processes, linking predictors with the predictant. The predictant here is the South China Rainfall Index. And statistical tests are used only as an auxiliary tool to confirm the significance and their mutual independence among the predictors. So those are very important principles. We are not looking for many predictors, but we are looking for only those predictors we can have some physical interpretation. For searching for predictor, also different from the statistical method, we are not fishing data. We are sharply focused on only two fields. One is SST, or 2-meter temperature over land, and sea level pressure, because we believe only the lower boundary anomalies are most meaningful. And we are looking for only two types of precursors. One is called persistent precursor, another is called tendency precursor. For example, if we do May, June, we have to use before May in early spring or winter and look at those time mean anomalies, because those time mean anomalies often suggest a positive atmosphere-ocean interaction process maintaining those anomalies. And the tendency precursor often tells you the direction of the anomaly development. So by confining our searching predictors to only two fields and only two types of precursors, we are not looking at hundreds of maps. We are looking only maybe 4, 5, or 6, a limited number of maps, and trying to look at signal from those maps. Then understand why those signals related to the predictant. Now, to start with, probably you always want to look at how does this index relate to the equatorial SST anomaly. This is the equatorial strip from 10 south to 10 north, average SST as a function of longitude and time. From, if we look at the May, June, then this is from January, February, March, April. Now you see that there is some suggestion of winter Eastern Pacific warming gradually, rapidly decay, and it becomes a cooling. But those are correlation map, not really anomalies. And those correlations is not very strong, it's weak. So there is some suggestion that this Southern China Rainfall Index, more rainfall is occurred often on the rapid decay of the Eastern Pacific warming. But also, if you look at the previous winter, you see the Western Equatorial Pacific is cooling, Indian Ocean is warming. This type of dipole SST anomaly is the characteristics. Okay, now we want to look at climate anomalies simultaneous correlation with SCRI. The upper panel is global precipitation anomalies regressed onto MJ, this SCRI. Middle panel is sea level pressure, the color shading, and 850 winds. The lower panel is over ocean is SST, over land is 2 meter air temperature. So those basically tells you what is the precipitation and the low level anomalies associated with strong southern China rainfall. Now, a very prominent feature is that the southern China rainfall index represents this East Asian rain belt. And in contrast, there is a large scale drying over the north of the equator. And those drying is associated with anticyclonic circulation. And this anticyclonic circulation is coupled with a cooling to its north and to the east, southeast, and a warming to its southwest. Okay? Now this is a typical suggestion that this monsoon or anticyclonic anomaly and SST, dipole anomaly, can interact each other and maintain each other. Okay? This is some suggestions come to our mind. So therefore, we can look for predictors. The predictors we have been looking at is only one field. This field is February minus December. This is the tendency across winter time. So it's a 2-month lead predictors. We can make a prediction by the end of February just using this SST or T2M temperature. Now, in these figures, of course, it is, you see this cooling here, warming there. Okay? This is anticyclonic anomaly. Therefore, this warming minus cooling is one of the predictors called the Indian Ocean Western Pacific temperature tendency. Is a dipole type of SST tendency. Another is the NAO-like SST anomalies, tropical, that's tripole SST anomalies, which are associated with the anomalous North Atlantic oscillation. And this tendency eventually will develop to SST anomaly pattern, something like this tripole pattern. Okay. And another thing notice is in the Northern Asia is warming, somehow related to the snow cover, the tendency. Okay, so this this warming tendency is another predictor. So using this, we can see their individual correlations with SCRI is significant. And more importantly, between those predictors, their correlation is relatively low. Okay. Now, those relatively independent predictors, although it's only 3, but they can make a good multi-regression. Very simple idea. So this is the SCRI black curve, and the blue curve is cross-validation by taking 3-year out during the entire period. In other words, you take 3-year out to formulate, using these 3 predictors to formulate a forecast equation. Then predict this 3 years. Then you move, and this is called the cross-validation. And you can also use the data before 2005 to make a forecast equation using these 3 predictors. Then use independent forecast from 2006 to compare with observations. In any case, the cross-validated scale is 0.75. and even the independent forecast test is good. So I want to conclude this part. We identified 3 physically consequential predictors for South China rainfall. Plenty of South China rainfall is preceded in the previous winter. This is a 2-month lead. By a dipole SSE tendency in the Indo-Pacific warm pool, a tripolar SSE tendency in North Atlantic, and a warming tendency in the Northern Asia. This is major 3 precursor or predictors. Now those precursors, I don't have time to show details evolution, how those precursors link to March, April, May, June circulation. But you will see that importance they foreshadow the enhanced Philippine Sea subtropical high. Okay? Now this SST tendency, the dipole SST tendency, actually is interact with this subtropical high. And the North Asia warming has to do with the Okhotsk high. And this 2 system in early summer is contributing factors for the rainfall along the East Asian subtropical front. The PE model, of course, has very good performance compared to dynamic models. It's useful, especially in the current status dynamic prediction is poor. Now, why the model has low scale? This question has not been answered in this study, but it should. We should to diagnose whether those dynamic models capture those long lead predictors. Okay. Now to find out why the model cannot do as good job as simple PE model.